independent program attorney from U.S. Law Shield, Michelle Byington, who joins us via Skype today. Michelle, how are you? Happy Tuesday.
Thank you. Happy Tuesday to you.
Thank you. Now, we got to get to this. This is, you're the attorney. I'm just the dork who throws the questions to you. But there was a big get-together in one of the parks in Houston, Texas. In fact, Herman Park, where there's a statue of our founder, Sam Houston, Houston, Texas. And there had been calls for maybe taking it down, I guess false calls that he had been a slave over, whatever. He had owned slaves. And people came out there to support those who wanted to taking it down. They never showed up. But supporters came out to say, we're going to defend the statue. And a lot of them had what looks like AR-15 type rifles over their shoulders, right? It's very heated discussion. It's very passionate, which I understand. There's a guy now in the B-roll. There's one guy, a protester, who got grabbed by the back of the neck, and there's a little bit of violence going on there. There's the folks with the ARs. What are the rules and regs of going to a rally or a protest, bringing your guns? How should you hold it? How should you leave the magazine in or not? Should you open the chamber or not? Should your finger be near the trigger or not? Walk with me on this one. I'm going to a protest or a rally, or an all-American rally. Give me advice on bringing my AR-15, Michelle Byington.
So there's nothing wrong with participating in any sort of rally or participating in any sort of protest and carrying your firearm, whether it be a handgun. If you want to open carry a handgun, remember you got to have a license to carry. And then that handgun has to be in either a belt holster or a shoulder holster. And then as we saw this past weekend there at Herman Park, it's also perfectly legal to participate in a protest with your long gun. Now, there were several people there with their AR-15s strapped across their back. And basically, there's nothing wrong with that. It's perfectly legal to carry your firearm as long as you lawfully possess it and participate in a protest here in Houston or here in Texas, wherever. Now, if you want to go perhaps do a protest in Oklahoma for whatever reason, I believe it's not lawful to carry at a protest in Oklahoma. So remember, I'm a Texas attorney. I'm pretty worthless outside of Texas. So here in Texas, totally legal to carry a firearm while participating in a protest. Now, what's important is your next line of questioning is what I want to hit on how do you hold that firearm? How do you carry it? Basically, it becomes the crime of disorderly conduct when you display a firearm in a manner calculated to alarm. So the way that you display it, so whether you have your finger on a trigger and it's pointed at somebody, that's probably displaying your firearm in a manner calculated to alarm another person. However, if it's just slung across your back, your hands aren't on it, you're not doing anything, you're not, pointing the barrel towards anybody's direction, then that is not the crime of disorderly conduct.
All right, say that phrase again. Say the phrase again. The phrase of which manner
calculated to alarm.
A manner calculated to alarm. So
correct.
If my Colt, the real deal, AR-15 is slung across my chest, and I'm just sitting there, I got a sandwich in one hand and a Coke in the other, which is generally how I spend my weekends, standing outside with an AR-15, a sandwich and a Coke. That is not a manner that's going to alarm anybody, right?
Correct.
But
correct. Now, the mere fact that somebody is alarmed because they see a gun, that does not mean that you were carrying it in a manner calculated to alarm. So the result of somebody being afraid because they're a sissy and they don't like guns, that's not a crime on you. The crime becomes, or you become, perhaps looked at in a sort of criminal offense when you do something with that gun that would cause another person to be alarmed. But the mere fact that you're carrying a gun and somebody sees it, not a manner calculated to alarm.
Now, some of the people in the video that we're looking at right now, for instance, have right hand on the grip, left hand under the barrel, the stock of the AR Type 15. Fingers not on the trigger. Have we walked into that arena of the one you talked about, where people might, Sam has his hand on the grip of the AR-15. Are we getting closer, or is that still okay? So that we don't
we may be taking a few steps closer to a manner calculated to alarm, but what we have to remember is there's no set specific guideline of what is safe and what's not. There's no sort of guideline list on, okay, well, if the hand is on the grip and then the left hand is under the barrel, there's no, set law that says, okay, if they're in that position, then boom, we've got a disorderly conduct case. So you have to look at every single detail, what the person was saying, what they were doing, what was their intent, how were they holding it. And at the end of the day, it's going to go before 6 people, because disorderly conduct is a misdemeanor. So that means we've got a jury of 6 people who will decide whether you were in fact displaying that gun in a manner calculated to alarm. And that is, the quintessential "it depends" sort of answer that I can only give you with regards to this.
Michelle Byington, independent program attorney, U.S. Law Shield. Leave your comments and your questions right now on Facebook so I can get to them and read them. Does it matter if there is a magazine, let's say where it belongs on the AR-15 or on my belt? Maybe there's no mag on the gun and the chamber's open, you can see. Does that have any impact when it comes to a manner that may scare people, threaten people, whatever?
No, the mere fact that a magazine is in the firearm itself is not evidence that you were carrying it to alarm other people. There may be prosecutors and police officers who try to make a to-do out of this for sake of argument, but I think it would be a very unsuccessful argument that you were carrying it to scare people, and the sole evidence of that was because you had the magazine in it. There's nothing wrong with keeping the magazine in the gun. That's where it belongs.
That's what I think, but, those who aren't familiar with our Second Amendment culture may think, oh, there's no mag, well, then there's no problem. But if there's a magazine, he could be dangerous. I'm going to call the cops. And let's say people do call the cops on you, Michelle Byington. The rally's over, and I'm walking to my car now. I'm going back, and I take my AR. I call it Shirley. I'm like, Shirley, we're done for the day. I'm going to put you away. And somebody's like, well, now you're walking around. They call the cops, and the cop comes up to me. He says, what are you doing? As I'm holding my AR. I said, what's the best answer to give a police officer? Should someone call 911 on you? You're totally within your right. You're not in a threatening manner. You're not doing anything wrong. What's the best thing to say to a police officer?
I think the best thing to offer the police officer is say, look, I am carrying this pursuant to, number one, my Second Amendment right to bear arms, and second, pursuant to Texas law that tells me I can do it. There's no law that says it's a violation or it is against Texas law to carry a firearm openly. So that means, officer, I can do it. I'm not doing anything wrong. Now, when you are encountering or in a police encounter, don't touch a gun, right? Like, don't do anything that would threaten a police officer, because it's a really good way to die by cop, suicide by cop, as it's known. So anytime that you are interacting with law enforcement, I'd recommend have nothing in your hands. And then, of course, if they want to disarm you, they can. It's perfectly legal to disarm you during your encounter with a police officer. So don't fight it. All right. And if for whatever reason you are arrested because you get a cop who doesn't know the law, let us fight it out in court. Don't fight it out right there in the parking lot.
So once again, Michelle Byington, smartest attorney ever, independent program attorney, U.S. Law Shield. I'm walking back to my car. I'm putting my AR-15 in the back seat. Police officer comes up and says, hey, stop what you're doing. Stop what you're doing. If he says, put your hands on the hood of the car, I guess he's perfectly right to do that. Let him pat you down, check your wallet, and maybe you have your CHL on you. Maybe you don't. Maybe you have your U.S. Law Shield card, or you don't. But don't sit there and start arguing right there is what you're saying.
Right. Don't do anything that will increase the likelihood of you getting arrested, right? I've seen lots of people who perhaps were just open carrying and ended up getting arrested basically because they were just a jerk to the police. So if you can get mouthy, but expect to get arrested if you start getting a little hostile with the police officer. So that's my advice is just be compliant, be non-threatening. And if the cop does something that, you 100% disagree with, that's when we come in and we can fight it in the courts. And
no matter what, you'd be respectful because that's someone's dad or son or husband or wife or whatever, that police officer. They want to go home too.
Absolutely.
Maybe they don't, maybe for some, and we've seen the videos where the cops harass people who are carrying long guns. Maybe they're not up to speed. But what's the point of getting hit in the head with a nightstick and getting tased? I have better things to do with my weekends. I don't know about you. And you know what? If they have to put cuffs on you, what? Just let them put the cuffs on and take the ride?
Basically, just be compliant, non-threatening. If they say, put your hands behind your back, you're going to we're going to arrest you. If you make any movement to try to like stop that arrest, so you pull away from them, you've just tacked on a resisting arrest charge. So don't do it.
Man, that's cray-cray. So going back, you can take your gun to the park if you'd like, or take a stroll down the street with your long gun over your shoulder. Perfectly
Totally
fine. Doesn't matter if it's slung over the back or the front. Doesn't matter if there's a magazine or not. Most important thing is how you're holding it.
Right.
So that legal phrase that you threw out earlier.
In a manner calculated to alarm. That's it. Don't do it.
That's the way I open up my American Express bill every month. Yeah, in a manner calculated to alarm. So it doesn't matter if it's over the front, back, magazine. Just be careful about alarming. If you're going to do your pistol, your semi-automatic, your revolver, if you're wearing it outside, got to have your CHL or your LTC license to carry.
Yes.
And if the police come up to you, just chillax. Don't be such a bonehead about it, right?
Exactly. Don't be a bonehead about it. That's exactly right. Just, let them take control. Don't touch your firearm around a police officer. Say, look, I'm going to let you take the lead. Do whatever you want with my firearm. And then upon the, once the stop or the encounter has ended, then they must return your weapons to you if you're not arrested.
And then watching the video, Chris, you can put the B-roll back of that protest on Saturday. There's a lot of people with guns, and there's some knucklehead out there, and somebody grabs them from behind, and all of a sudden tensions escalate real fast. If you had your AR, I don't know if you're an AR fan, I am, but if you had your AR and you see something like that, isn't the knee-jerk reaction or the immediate reaction is, let me help, and you have a gun, would you tell people, like, if you see a fight, don't even touch the AR. Stay away from it, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, don't, especially if there's just sort of this, little scuffle going on and you're not in any sort of fear that this person's going to die or sustain serious bodily injury. So with the incident that occurred at Herman Park where somebody just basically is like grabbed by the back of the neck, that's not going to cause somebody to die or sustain serious bodily injury. So yeah, don't even touch your weapon. That's when we use our words, Sam, as we say, stop that, don't do it. Pull the guy away from the other individual, and then, let it go from there.
I thought all of a sudden I was back in, elementary school, and you said, Sam, that's when we use our words. I've heard that from
Use our words, Sam.
Many teachers. Use our words. Good stuff. I appreciate the breaking news. You taking the time to join us today, because I saw this, and I'm like, we've got to get you involved in this. By the way, just to show you, we're not all on the same page, and I say this with tons of respect. Christina, we're on Facebook Live, and you can type in your comments. I'm sorry, it was Dave. Dave says, what is an LTC? You and I throw that phrase around like Big Mac, right? I know what a Big Mac is. Christina then jumps in, license to carry. So we always have to remember, well, you're an attorney. You've been at this a long time. I've been at it not as long. A lot of people out there who are just kind of getting up to speed on what we're talking about.
Absolutely. We all have to start somewhere, and we all were a beginner at some point in time. But yes, Christina was exactly right, David, that a license to carry, we call an LTC for short. And before LTC, you'll hear, myself or Sam reference the CHL. We used to have concealed handgun licenses, but now with open carry lawful here in Texas, we call them LTCs.
Exactly. And I know you're probably thinking LTC. Isn't that an old Ford? Four-door that your dad had. Hey, Dad, nice LTC. When you have questions, don't be afraid to ask. The best thing is to visit the website for U.S. Law Shield, uslawshield.com. Okay, and there's plenty of basic information, kind of like 101. It's kind of like gun safety, gun issues 101. It's not going to be over your head, and it's a great way to start. And never be shy to ask questions. Nobody gets hurt. Nobody gets hurt if you're pretty much asking questions. Okay, very good. I appreciate you taking time to join us with our breaking news. Everyone also keep leaving your comments and such on there. Michelle Byington, phenomenal independent program attorney of U.S. Law Shield. I appreciate you joining us today from the News Desk.
Fun as always. Talk to you soon.
You got it. In Houston, Texas, I'm Sam Malone. Thanks for joining us.